Hey guys, it's Car from Enchanted Vines, and we're gonna do another make a wreath in 20 minutes. So just to keep things honest, Alexa, set timer for 20 minutes. All right, here we go.
20 minutes, starting now.
Tip this so you can get a good view of the easel. I know this is pretty great camera work on my part. All right, so to start, we're gonna be using these variegated ficus leaves. And I like the green and white because it gives it a little bit of texture. And this wreath is going to be a lot of more pastel tones, so this also kind of goes with that. So what I do is, I'm very OCD, so usually if I do something once, you're going to see me do it again. And the benefit of that is we create a look that is balanced. So here we go. So what we're doing right now is we are using our leaves to kind of just outline how far out we're going to build our wreath. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to go beyond this with florals, because usually I like some trailing off, but it's just a good little guide. Okay. Right. And then I'm going to fill in up top a little bit with a couple more. One here. And one here. All right. Now I did already prep all the materials, so even though I'm saying 20 minutes, you know, we had to clean up the wreath in advance and cut down all of our florals, so it's not a true 20 minutes. It's just the 20 minutes of actually assembling this wreath. So I like to do a large focal flower in the front and then build out from that. So my daughter was back from school for Easter, and I asked her to pull a couple color palettes for me. So she pulled a total of 4 bouquets. I've already made 2 of them. This is the third, and it's very soft and feminine. And then the last one that she gave me is a lot of deep shades of blue. So I'm curious about how that one's going to come out, but it's nice getting somebody else's perspective because it's very easy for me to fall into like hot pinks. It's just kind of my go-to. It's just my favorite. So good to get other people's perspectives. All right, so I'm going through with these peonies. And as you can see, again, I'm mirroring. So if I put one up here, I've repeated it down here. I put one over here, I repeated it right here. And I'm going to go in with some, actually I have 2 more of these. So I do like to do things in batches. Again, it helps maintain that level of balance. And hopefully you use up the right amount of your supplies. I think my next video, I do something called the kitchen sink, where I take all my one-offs, you know, if I've cut things and then not used them, and I just put them in a container, and then I go back and I have to use what's in there. So what's usually a kitchen sink, I've been so busy this week that it is more like a tub. I don't know if it's the spring air or what it is, but I have just been feeling really energized, and I've just been doing a lot of designing this week. And it's just been kind of flowing effortlessly, which I'm loving. So I'm using these cabbage roses. So I want to try and break up these peachy peonies that we put in with these roses. So when you're working with faux florals, a few things to note is, one, finding things that are high quality. So most of mine come from Pioneer wholesalers out of Ohio. You do need to have a business in order to order from them. You need like a tax ID, but their quality is fantastic. So like sometimes you get things and like the flowers might be pretty, but the foliage might look cheap. I really don't find that with Pioneer. I'm very happy with their combos in general. We want to be creating real beauty with faux florals so that it lasts for seasons to come. And they are definitely my go-to for that specific reason. All right, so see how quick this is filling in? Let's ask Alexa where we're at. Alexa, how much time left on the timer?
You have 2 timers. A 20-minute timer with about 14 minutes left and a 20-minute timer with about 15 minutes left.
Okay, so we're only 5 minutes in, and you can see how full this design already is. So once you kind of find your like recipe of what you're comfortable with, it really can start coming together, and you know, swap out different color palettes, different florals, different size blooms, but you kind of stick to that same recipe, and you can see how, one, you can start to create something that feels like a signature design for you. And then also it's, you know, kind of just easy designing. You know when to stop. You don't overbuy product. You just kind of have a good sense of it, okay? So again, we're like 5 minutes in, and this girl is already very full. All right, so this is an example of something that I like the flowers, but this is very tacky to me, this plastic. So I just pull this off. When you're working with these florals, oops, you want to just get the best of them. So if there's parts that you don't like, instead of, you know, putting in something with this very tacky, fake looking plastic greenery, just cut it off. So you're just getting the parts that you want. You got to manipulate your materials. And everything is very malleable. So if you see, like, these things aren't going to break. They're going to bend in the direction that you want. So you also want to be implementing that. See, we have some pops of a darker peach. And for this, I removed the greenery, the lower greenery, only because it was going to interfere with me putting it in the wreath. And how I'm gluing is I'm using a glue pot, which, let me see. So with this glue pot, some of it's still melting, but it uses pellets. So I use this big thing of pellets, and you just take some, you throw them in your glue pot, and they melt. Sorry for that clang. And that's from Surebonder, and that is by far the easiest way to design because it's just hands-free. All right, and it does melt the glue very quickly. It gets really, really hot, though. That's my only thing to caution people about. So you want to be really careful that, you know, you don't end up with like a glob of glue on your hands, because it's just going to blister like right away. And then usually what I do, I'm in New Hampshire, so we deal with New England weather, which is always pretty erratic. And I don't remove my wreaths from my doors, so these have to be designed to withstand, you know, some pretty tough elements. So I also like to go back and use a glue gun and just go around the base. And I use a Gorilla Glue, a high temp Gorilla Glue. And I go back and I just add that little bit of reinforcement. With the cost of materials on the rise, just like everything's on the rise, you don't want to pay, you know, $180 for a wreath that's going to last a season. So I do that extra gluing step, and then I also apply the Krylon UV protectant, which there should be a video somewhere, or else I'll post it. But what I do with mine for my own home is every year I reapply this Krylon UV protectant spray. And at the end of the season, I like to clean my wreaths off before storing them. So I give them another spray at that time too. So the spring wreath I have on my door right now is going for 5 years, which I think that is a good stretch of time for a wreath. In New England especially. All right, so now I'm going in with some fillers. Okay, I'm trying to leave a little bit of space in between the flowers. It's very corny, but the visualization that I like to use is that in nature, you want things to be airy, like as if a butterfly could fly or float through them if they wanted to. So it's a good little reminder because some people just, myself included, sometimes you just design really compact and you don't always get the best out of that. So you want to make sure your stems are a few inches off the grapevine and that there's space in between your flowers. These are like these little paired up baby cabbage roses. I have to say my daughter did a pretty darn good job in choosing her flowers for me. I asked her if she wanted to actually make a wreath with me, and that's when she evacuated the area. All right, so looking really quick, it's always helpful to do a little bit of a balance check. So if we're looking here, this is not balanced. So even though I had put my established greenery in, now that we're building, there's a little bit of a gap here. So it's always good to take a step back. Like sometimes I might not even catch something until I go to photograph it to list it. But it's good to take a step back and analyze how the placement is. And if you need to make changes, do it then. Because if something is hurting you now, it's going to probably just continue to get worse. And by then you've got glue that's hardened and other things in place. So just pull it when you see it. Recipe is going together so easily. Oops. So I accidentally just popped the head off of this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just dip the tip in glue. And it obviously has like a super short stem, but we'll still use it just so it doesn't go to waste. Try not to waste if you can. All right, we're going in with some Queen Anne's lace. Queen Anne's lace is a flower that I love because of how just airy it is. It has a big statement without being dense on your wreath. And if you have any stickers on your stems, make sure they come off because they sure don't look like that's part of nature. All right. So I want to be strategic. We have 3 Queen Anne's laces to use. And I want to put them in a prominent area where they get the attention that they deserve. So I put one up top. So you guessed it. We're going to go down below. And then we're going to do something off to the side. You don't always have to do things in even, odd numbers, but I do think it's nice to create kind of like a unique balance. It's not too matchy-matchy. All right, now I'm just looking, I'm seeing some glue hairs. And what else? My daughter gave me berries to put in. So these are berries from Pioneer. And a lot of places do not have good quality berries. They're very foamy and I just don't see how they could last in outdoor weather. You know, if you look at like a lot of catalog wreaths, they're made for covered porches or to be inside. And the ones that I'm making are meant to be outside. So I want to use materials that are going to stand up to getting wet. Like if I rinse down my front door, I sometimes don't even move my wreath. I'll just rinse my wreath down too. Because between the UV spray and the quality of the materials, water's not going to ruin it. But if you're using something like sometimes stems have almost like a papery wrapper to them, then something like that is not going to do well when it gets wet. So you want to just choose your materials for the project. If it's meant to go inside, then you can do all those things. You can do the pampas grass, anything delicate and dainty and all that. But if you know this is going outside or you're a wreath maker that's selling it and you don't think your audience is going to be using it inside, then you definitely have to be thoughtful. Maybe I see this again. Just doing like a quick assessment, and I'm missing height up here. So I'm going to add another ficus leaf. And I'm going to do one here. Go. And then I'm just looking, and I definitely have not distributed enough of this pink. It's kind of like a heather. So I'm going to go back in and see, okay, I've got it really protruding here, which means that it should have front and center placement here. Let's just do a little more because I do like this blend. All right, where to go? Let's do something to kind of highlight our focal flower. And what I like is to create texture. I don't like everything the same height or just like very much aligned. I like things that interrupt the space. If you were looking in an English garden, things aren't just growing like up and down, they're growing through one another. And so this kind of gives it that feel of, you know, something that's growing in the wild. I always like a little something special at the end. So that's usually where my berries go. I usually have some trailing flowers here. I don't like the placement of this. I'm just going to show you how hard it is once something's glued. So unfortunately, I pulled the head off of that. See how strong this glue is? My goodness. Okay, so I dipped this in glue, and I'm putting this back on the stem. You could just slide it back on the stem, but I would not recommend it because you've already kind of disrupted how secure it was. So I always just put a little bit of glue. It's not going to hurt. It's a lot better than a customer opening up something and having a head fall off her wreath. All right, almost done with our bouquet. All right, Alexa, how much time is left on the second timer?
We have 2 timers. A 20-minute timer with about 1 minute left, and a 20-minute timer with about 2 minutes and 10 seconds left.
All right, so we got 2 minutes and 10 seconds because I accidentally set the timer twice. So we have successfully made a wreath in 20 minutes. So let's see. Let's get a look at her. What do we think? She's a very feminine, soft crescent wreath. And she's made for outdoors. Now what I am going to do is, for final steps, I am going to trim all of this. If you see all of this, I'm going to trim it. I'm going to add a little bit of glue, and then I'm going to put some moss over it. And that's just to prevent it from scratching someone's door. Let's see. I'll do a few just to show you. Okay, so anywhere that it's sticking out, I'm going to chop that right down. And because the part that I'm chopping was the part dipped in glue, it's very important. Alexa, stop. It's very important to go back in with more glue. Again, I know I go a little crazy with like the level of mechanics, but it's worth it because then you can stand by your product and you're not going to have to worry about that bad review or a customer who feels like, you know, they chose your shop and was disappointed. Because it is true, like there's a lot of different shops that people can choose from. And so I always feel like if I got the sale, I want to make sure that I earn it and that my customers are happy. So this is one way I do it, is to make sure that their doors aren't scratched and that nothing is falling out. Once I'm done with this, I'm going to apply the Krylon UV spray. Just hit it for like 20 to 40 seconds. Pay special attention to the greenery because the greenery is what turns blue when it gets a lot of sun. Alexa, stop. And once it turns blue, I just feel like it looks so fake. So these are some things that you can do to help make creations that are going to last 4 seasons. Okay. All right, so I'm going to finish adding the moss to the back of this. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if there are any other videos you want to see, let me know. I'm happy to make them. Thanks, guys.